With the introduction of the new French wheeled light tanks into the game, let's discuss whether or not the game has now become broken by these new tanks, whether the matchmaker has been royally screwed over, and whether Wargaming made a mistake at actually implementing these into the game. Of course, we'll talk about all of this in today's video, and I want your opinion in the comment section down below, so make sure that you do leave that so we can really discuss whether or not you think that these were a good, a bad, or just a mediocre addition into World of Tanks console. Now, to start off with, obviously you can see in the background I have the TS6 French wheeled light tank, and to be honest with you, it's pretty lackluster. Yeah, it's really quick. Yes, it can turn on a penny, but does that really offer you much that is actually beneficial in World of Tanks console? For sure you can avoid getting hit, but at the end of the day, when you're only dealing minimal amounts of damage, even with the kind of top gun on the vehicle having 110 alpha, it's not enough. It just doesn't have the real pack-a-punch to really punish anyone, even though you're not necessarily getting punished as often. But certainly if they manage to ram into you, which they can with these tanks, if you get stuck, if you are having to go on a one-on-one with the opponent, you really don't necessarily have much of a chance of taking them out from full health like you might do with a traditional light tank, such as, you know, something like the Batchat 12T or the equivalent AMX 12T at the same tier. So I don't think that this tank in particular is broken, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of the tanks in the tech tree are kind of in the same sort of staple period where, yeah, they might not be that overpowered. Obviously, as you get up the tiers, you get higher alpha, you kind of get better statistics in general. You see in the Panhard EBR 105 here in the background, you can actually have a look at the detailed statistics. If you want to do that yourself, all you have to do is press Y or triangle when going over the overview, and you can get up this little menu here for those of you who don't already know. But regardless of that, these details don't show you the kind of siege mode UI, I guess. So between the different modes in which you can actually activate the tank at. So I believe this is the standard mode, the cruise mode even. So you can see 70 kilometers an hour top speed. When you actually look at the realistic top speed with the rapid mode, that actually goes up to like 85, I believe, which can then be boosted even further with fuel and also the equipment that you can put on these tanks, which I believe is plus 5% speed. So I don't think that these are necessarily that super overpowered in terms of kind of just going like 100 and something kilometers an hour. Yes, they are really good for avoiding shots. The turning circle on these things are just insane. You can see here that the turning speed of these vehicles is disgusting. 66 degrees a second on the turret rotation, and you can also see the rotation of the hull as well, 65 degrees a second, which is ridiculous. That's 130 degrees a second combined when you add in, you know, the hull and the turret at the same time. So yeah, utterly bonkers. Definitely tanks that really, they don't do well in the server delay that we currently have on console, where, you know, if you're moving so quickly, the server kind of doesn't catch up quick enough. So often you'll be seeing rounds come out the side of your turret, which doesn't even make sense because on your actual screen your gun is pointed in a 90-degree angle from where the round is actually coming out of your tank, and it's because the server hasn't actually updated to the point where you're looking on in the game, which is a big problem. And hopefully they'll bring in some sort of server-side reticle where it'll actually show you where the server reticle is in comparison to where your actual reticle is on your screen individually. So yeah, not something I've enjoyed. Obviously, I think with these new tanks, the speed definitely helps to increase the mobility, which means that you can pull off maneuvers that you're not likely to be able to do in any other wheeled, or not even wheeled vehicle, just any other vehicle within the game. Even the fastest tanks like the Snakebite and things like that just don't really share much benefit over playing the AMD and stuff like that, the EBRs, because they are just that much faster. But the main problem is that do you sacrifice that damage potential and the ability to actually spot opponents just for the sake of getting a little bit faster? Well, quite a bit faster in the case of like the tier 10, but in case of like the tier 6, is it really worth it? Me personally, I don't think that this is particularly that overpowered. Certainly the tier 7 isn't that overpowered, the tier 8 isn't that overpowered. I think really the only kind of issue is the ability to not be able to hit them very reliably, but on console the mechanics for driving are slightly harder, I think, than on PC, which means that people can't drive as well. That will come with time, and since they've been only out for a couple of days, it isn't much of a problem right now. But I don't know what you guys have been thinking about like the actual speed of these tanks. Is it enough? Should there be differences in the speed at which they've currently got them at? Should they be lower? Are you finding these a real pain within the game? Because I can see why they are a pain, because they are a nuisance when they just come and YOLO you, because yeah, when you're that fast and you can avoid that many shells, they certainly can be really annoying, but they're not necessarily doing that much damage to you individually. It just kind of gets rid of like the thought process within World of Tanks, which I don't like, is the fact that you've got like 6 of these just running absolute riot within every single game. And talking about that, the matchmaker has just been destroyed recently with just 12 of these wheeled light tanks every single game, unless you're maybe at tier 10, because obviously not that many people have been able to grind out all of the XP, or alternatively no one's actually paid the money to be able to unlock these tanks at the top tier. So I think you've always got that. I think you have to be definitely careful with where Wargaming go with the balancing of these tanks in the future. Hopefully they don't buff them, even though they maybe aren't necessarily the most competitive tanks within the game. I definitely think that the whole point in them is that they go fast and you can avoid shells, and that is the whole premise of the tank. You shouldn't really get any other benefits, to be honest, because that's when it really does become like, well, if they've got all of that, why are they getting all of like the extra damage and being able to compete on paper with the other light tanks that don't have the ability to turn so quickly and avoid all of these shots? So I think that, yeah, making sure that they don't do a PC wheeled light vehicles is something that they will have to deal with, and hopefully with the release of new wheeled light vehicles coming into World of Tanks console, I don't know when they're coming in. Wargaming did confirm that they are looking into wheeled vehicles coming into the game separate to the French wheeled vehicles, so new wheeled vehicle tank line eventually. Don't know any more information other than that, but you can obviously let me know in the comment section down below what other wheeled vehicles do you think will be coming into the game. Is it something like a British wheeled vehicle or something like that? I'm not that well versed in it, so I'm not going to speculate. Obviously let me know if you have a bit more of an idea as to some wheeled vehicles that other nations maybe used in the kind of World War II / Cold War era, to be honest, because you know what Wargaming are like. In World War II you've got Cold War tanks, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, enough speculation about the new wheeled vehicles coming into the game and whether they'll be balanced. I think, you know, there are definitely some things you can do to counteract some of these tanks. As we mentioned in a previous video, you know, you can jump in your wheeled light tanks that have much better kind of potential to ram. Definitely try out the T54 Lightweight if you've got one. That tank is just so much fun to be able to actually deal with a lot of the opponents that you'll be facing, because you have the heavy kind of aspect of it. So if you ever come up against any of the French light tanks, whether they're wheeled or not, you can ram them for so much damage, especially when you fully kit out your tank with spool liner and all of the kind of commander perks as well to limit the amount of damage you're taking from ram damage, which includes armor angling and also controlled impact, which is really good. I definitely recommend trying out a build on this if you haven't already. There's plenty of videos on T54 Lightweight showcasing how you can use the ramming build to be able to deal some just ridiculous amounts of damage just from a ram. Obviously then you've got other light tanks that you can use as well. It's all just a matter of personal preference, but I think if you definitely want to be able to deal with a lot of these French wheeled light tanks and just feel like you're going to rinse them on the battlefield and not have to worry about the fact that they have the speed, yeah, definitely things like the LT432, any of the heavy light tanks, or alternatively just autoloader tanks, because you can smack out that damage on these wheeled vehicles which don't actually have an autoloader unless it's the tier 8 version that's a premium. So yeah, make sure that you kind of think about that when you are deciding what you want to do within the game. Obviously the EBR75 MLE here does have the autoloader version, so it's a 2-shot 175 damage to 350 total damage gun. So let me know what you think. Are you thinking that they're broken tanks? Are they just simply just bang average? Or are they something that you'll be looking forward to grinding, giving a go within the console version? And hopefully they aren't broken to the degree when we're getting like 6 EBR 105s in the top tier game, when everyone filters their way through and grinds out the enough XP to be able to get there. I'm still at the tier 6. Not fully upgraded, played a few games. Don't think I'll be making a specific video on the Panhard AMD 178B. You probably saw a little bit of footage in the background. Haven't had many like superb games in this tank. It just isn't very well suited to like a high skill cap, I don't think, with these tanks, because yeah, you've got to basically YOLO tanks is kind of the premise of them, and single out targets, which is very like situational, and you don't really have very good passive spotting, etc. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and make sure that you check out the comment section, read through people's things, have a look at your own kind of opinions, write them down, and yeah, hopefully it will be a good kind of discussion board, if anything, to see what you guys are thinking, because ultimately you're the people that play this game as well, not just me. I'm just one person that, yeah, people watch, but my opinion literally doesn't matter any more than yours does, especially to wargaming. So there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out other videos on the French wheeled light tanks and more information on them, check out these on screen, or alternatively have a look at some gameplay that's come out with the new earn operations for the Brask and also the Type 59-2, which you can check out as well. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope you join me back in the next one. Goodbye.